Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. My name is Vincent Lee, and I'm gonna read Chapter 2, Gaining Power. The baby grew into a little boy. His friends took to making fun of him for not being a high-class birth like they were. So he went and asked his mother who his father was. She told him to pay no attention to what the children said. She told him his father was dead, the king Badfruit of Mythelia, and how his brother, Prince Poorfruit, had stolen the throne. After that, he didn't bother him when the others called him son of a widow. Before he was 16, the bright young Fruitful learned all there was to know about religion, literature, and the skills of a warrior. He grew into a very handsome young man. He decided it was time to regain his rightful crown, which had been stolen by his uncle. So he went and asked his mother, "Do you have any of the wealth that belonged to my father?" she said. "Of course, I did not escape empty-handed. Thinking of you, I brought pearls, jewels, and diamonds, so there is no need for you to work for pay. Go directly and take back your kingdom." But he said, "No, mother, I will take only half. I will sail to Burma, the land of gold, and make my fortune there." His mother said, "No, my son, it is too dangerous to sail aboard. There is a plenty of fortune here." He said, "I must leave half with you, my mother, so you can live in comfort as a queen should." So, saying, he departed by ship for Burma. On the same day that Prince Fruitful set sail, his uncle King Poorfruit became very ill. He was so sick that he could no longer leave his bed. Meanwhile, on the ship bound for Burma, there were some 350 people. It sailed for 7 days. Then there was a violent storm that damaged and weakened the ship. All except the prince cried out in fear and prayed for help to their various gods. But the Bodhisattva did not cry out in fear. The enlightenment being did not pray to any god for help. Instead, he helped himself. He filled his belly with concentrated butter mixed with sugar, since he didn't know how long it would be before this next meal. He soaked his clothes in oil to protect himself from the cold ocean water and help him stay afloat. Then, when the ship began to sink, he went and held on to the mast, for it was the tallest part of the ship. As the deck sank underwater, he pulled himself up the mast. Meanwhile, his trembling, praying shipmates were sucked underwater and gobbled up by hungry fish and huge turtles. Soon the water all around turned red from blood. As the ship sank, Prince Fruitful reached the top of the mast. To avoid being devoured in the sea of blood, he jumped mightfully from the tip of the mast in the direction of the kingdom of Mythelia. And at the same time as he saved himself from snapping jaws of the fish, turtles, King Poorfruit died in his bed. After his mighty leap from the top of the mast, the prince fell into an emerald-colored sea. His body shined like gold as he swam for 7 days and 7 nights. Then he saw it was the fasting day of the full moon, so he purified his mouth by washing it out with salt water and observed the 8 training steps. Once upon a time, in the very distant past, the gods of all of the four directions had appointed the goddess to be the protector of the ocean. They had told her that her duty was to protect especially all those who honored the respect their moths and other elders, all such who did not deserve to fall into the sea were to be protected by her. It just so happened that Prince Fruitful was one who deserved the protection of the ocean goddess. But for the 7 days and 7 nights that he had been swimming through the sea, the goddess had not been paying attention and doing her duty. She had been too busy enjoying heavenly pleasures to remember to keep watch on the ocean. Finally, she remembered her duty and looked over the oceans. Then she was the golden prince struggling in the emerald sea. After 7 days and 7 nights of swimming, she thought, if I let this Prince Fruitful die in the ocean, I would no longer be welcome to the company of the gods, for truly he is the enlightenment being. So she took on a form of splendor and beauty and floated in the air near him, wishing to learn truth from him. She asked, without being the shore of the ocean, why are you trying to reach the ocean's end? Hearing those words, the prince thought, for the 7 days I've been swimming, I have met no one who can this be? When he saw the goddess above him, he said, "O lovely goddess, I know that effort is the way of the world, so as long as I am in the world, I will try, even in mid-ocean with no shore to be seen." Wishing to learn more from him, she tested him by saying, "This vast ocean stretches much farther than you can see. Without reaching a shore, your effort is useless, for here you must die." Prince replied, "Dear goddess, how can effort be useless? For he who never gives up trying cannot be blamed, either by his relatives here below or by the gods above, so he was no regrets. No matter how impossible it seems, if he stops trying, he causes his own downfall." Pleased with his answer, the protecting goddess tested him one last time. She asked, "Why do you continue when there really is no reward to be gained except pain and death?" He answered her again, like a teacher to a pupil, "It is the way of the world that people make plans and try to reach their goals. The plans may succeed or fail. Only time will tell. But the value is in the effort itself in the present moment. And besides, O goddess, can't you see that my actions have already brought results? My shipmates only prayed and they were dead. But I have been swimming for 7 days and 7 nights, and lo behold, here you are floating above me. So I will swim with all my might, even across the ocean to reach the shore. While I have had once of strength, I'll try again." Completely satisfied, the ocean goddess who protected the good said, "You who bravely fight the mighty ocean against hopeless odds, you who refuse to run from the task before you, go wherever your heart desires, for you have my protection and no one can stop you. Just tell me where I may carry you to." The prince told her he wished to go to Mythilia. The goddess gently lifted him like a bouquet of flowers and laid him on her chest, like a loving mother with a newborn babe. Then she flew through the air, while the enlightened being slept cradled against her heavenly body, arrived at Thelia. She laid him on a sacred stone in a garden of mangoes and told the garden goddess to watch over him. Then the protector goddess of the ocean returned to her heaven world again. The dead king Fruitful had left behind only a daughter, no sons. She was well educated and wise, and her name was Princess Sivali. When the king was dying, the minister asked him, "Who will be the next king?" King Fruitful said, "Whoever can satisfy my daughter Sivali, whoever recognizes the head of the royal square bed, whoever can string the bow that only 1,000 men can string, or whoever can find the 16 hidden treasures." After the funeral of the king, the minister began searching for a new king. First, they looked for one who could satisfy the princess. They called for the general of the army. Princess Sivali wished to test him, so Mathelia could be ruled by a strong leader. She told him to come to her. Immediately, he ran up to the royal staircase. She said, "To prove your strength, run back and forth in the palace." Thinking only of pleasing her, the general ran back and forth until she motioned for him to stop. Then she said, "Now jump up and down." Again, the general did as he was told. Without thinking, finally the princess told him, "Come here and massage my feet." He sat in front of and began rubbing her feet. Suddenly, she put her foot against his chest and kicked him down the royal staircase. She turned to her ladies in waiting and said, "This fool has no common sense. He thinks the only strength is in running around and jumping up and down and following orders without thinking. He has no strength of character. He lacks the willpower needed to rule a kingdom. So throw him out of here at once." Later, the general was asked about his meeting with Princess Sivali. He said, "I don't want to talk about it. She is not human." The same thing happened with the treasurer, the cashier, the keeper of the royal seal, and royal swordsman. The princess found them all to be unworthy fools. So the minister decided to give up on the princess and find someone who could string the bow that only 1,000 men can string. But again, they could find no one. Similarly, they could find no one who knew the head of the royal square bed or who could find the 16 treasures. The minister became more and more worried that they could not find a suitable king, so they consulted the royal family priest. He said to them, "Calm down, my friends. We will send out the royal festival carriage. The one it stops for will be able to rule over all India." So they decorated the carriage and yoked the 4 most beautiful royal horses to it. The high priest sprinkled the carriage with holy water from a sacred golden pitcher. He proclaimed, "How now go forth, riderless carriage, and find the worthy one with enough merit to rule the kingdom." The horses pulled the carriage around the palace and then down the main avenue of Mathelia. They were followed by the 4 armies: the elephant, chariots, cavalry, and foot soldiers. The most powerful politicians of the city expected the processions and to stop in front of their houses, but instead it left the city by the eastern gate and went straight to the mango garden. Then it stopped in front of the sacred stone where Prince Fruitful was sleeping. The chief priest said, "Let us test the sleeping man to see if he is worthy to be king. If he is the one, he will not be frightened by the noise of the drums and instruments of all four armies." So they made a great clanging noise, but the prince just turned over on his other side, remaining asleep. Then they made the noise again, even louder. Again, the prince simply rolled over from side to side. The head priest examined the soles of the feet of the sleeping one. He said, "This man can rule not only Methelia, but the whole world in all four directions." So he awakened the prince and said, "May Lord arise. We beg you to be our king." Prince Fruitful replied, "What happened to your king?" "He died," said the priest. "Did he have any children?" asked the prince. "Only a daughter, Princess Sivali," answered the priest. Then Prince Fruitful agreed to be the new king. The chief priest spread jewels on the sacred stone. After bathing, the prince sat among the jewel. He was sprinkled with perfume water from the gold anointing bowl. Then he was crowned King Fruitful. The new king rode in the royal chariot, followed by a magnificent procession back to the city of Methelia and the palace. Prince Sivali still wished to test the king, so she sent a man to tell him she wished him to come at once. But King Fruitful ignored him, simply continuing to inspect the palace with its furnishing and works of art. The messenger told this to the princess, and she sent back 2 more times with the same results. He reported back to her, "This is a man who knows his own mind, not easily swayed. He paid as little attention to your words as we pay to the grass when we step on it." Soon the king arrived at the throne room where the princess was waiting. He walked steadily up the royal staircase, not hurrying, not slowing down, but dignified like a strong young lion. The princess was so impressed by his attitude that she went to him, respectfully gave him her hand, and led him to the throne. He gracefully sat on the throne. Then he asked the royal minister, Did the previous king leave behind any advice for testing the next king?" "Yes, Lord," they said. "Whoever can satisfy my daughter Sylvalia," the king responded. "You have seen the princess. Give me her hand." "Was there another test?" They said, "Whoever recognizes the head of the royal square bed." The king took a golden hairpin from his head and gave it to Princess Savalia, saying, "Put this away for me." Without thinking, she put it on the head of the bed, as if he had not heard it the first time. King Fruitful asked the minister to repeat the question. When they did, he pointed to the golden hairpin. "Was there another test?" asking the king. "Yes, Lord," replied the minister. "Whoever can string the bow that only 1,000 men can string." When they brought the bow, the king strung it without even rising from the throne. He did it as easily as a woman bends the rod that untangles cotton for spinning. "Are there any more tests?" the king asked the minister. Whoever can find the 16 hidden treasures. These are the last tests. What is the first on the list? He asked. They said, the first is the treasure of the rising sun. King Fruitful realized that there must be some trick to finding each treasure. He knew that a silent Buddha is often compared to the glory of the sun, so he asked, where did the king go to meet and feed silent Buddhas? When they showed him the place, he had them dig up the first treasure. The second was the treasure of the setting sun. King Fruitful realized this must be where the old king had said goodbye to silent Buddhas. In the same manner, he found all the hidden treasures. The people were happy that he had passed all the tests. As his first official act, he had houses of charity built in the center of cities, and at each of the 4 gates, he donated the entire 16 treasures to be given to poor and needy. Then he sent for his mother, Queen of the Dead, King Badfruit, and sent also for the King Wise Man of Gampa. He gave them both the honor they deserved. All the people of the kingdom came to Mathelia to celebrate the restorations of the royal line. They decorated the city with fragrant flowers, garland, and incense. They provided cushioned seats for visitors. There were fruits, sweets, drinks, and cooked foods everywhere. The minister and the wealthy brought musicians and dancing girls to entertain the king. There was beautiful poems recited by wise men and blessing chanted by holy men. The enlightenment, being King Fruitful, sat on the throne under the royal white umbrella in the midst of the great celebration. He seemed as majestic as the heavenly god, King Saka. He remembered his great effort struggling in the ocean against all odds, when even the ocean goddess and had abandoned him only because of all that almost hopeless effort. He himself was now as magnificent as a god. This filled him with such joy that he spoke this rhyme. Things happen expectedly, and prayers may not come true, but effort brings results that neither through nor prayers can do. After the wonderful celebration, King Fruitful ruled in Mathelia with perfect righteousness, and he humbly gave honor and alms food to silent Buddha in the fullness of time. Queen Sivali gave birth to a son because the wise men of the court saw signs of a long and glorious life ahead of him. He was named Prince Longlife. When he grew, the king made him second in command. My name is Vincent Lee, and I just read Chapter 2, Gaining Power. Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha.